All right, boys. It's Ecclesiastes time. I'm here again with Jason and Yosef, and I'm Jess, and we're here to talk about Ecclesiastes for our second episode. We're starting with chapter 6. So I guess I have to confess, I only kind of read chapter 6 and I didn't get past it. So I'm ill prepared, but I'm along for the ride.
No, but chapter 6 is the Job chapter. We can talk about it for as long as we need to.
Well, I imagine, there's a chance we could get through the book today, but probably not. We're probably going to end up doing episodes after this.
Okay.
All right. So chapter 6, should we just start reading the first part of this?
I think so.
Maybe that would be a good place to start.
Yeah.
I'm going to read from my translation, which is not ideal, but it'll give us a place to start.
The message.
Let me just bring it up on screen while we... There is an evil that I have seen under the sun, and it lies heavy on mankind. A man to whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing of all he desires. Yet God does not give him power to enjoy them, but a stranger enjoys them. This is vanity, a grievous evil, or this is Hevel, a grievous evil. If a man fathers 100 children and lives many years, so that the days of his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied with life's good things, and he also has no burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. For it comes in Hevel and goes in darkness, and in darkness its name is covered. Moreover, it has not seen the sun or known anything, yet it finds its rest rather than he. Even though he should live 1,000 years twice over, yet enjoy no good, do not all go to one place? I don't know if that's an arbitrary place to stop or...
It's okay.
Got any thoughts?
So first, I mean, just for continuity, and I think I pointed this out last time, there's no break in the Hebrew text between 4, 5, and 6, right? So this is
all just one
continuing
thing.
from the end of 5, where we stopped in 5, which it is the same topic, right? The end of 5 was, being happy with your lot. God, God, that's something that comes from God. If you can it's a gift from God to be happy with your work. And he will, if he provides you the joy of your heart, like that is like kind of the best thing. So then here's the person who's not able to enjoy it, right? So this is just the second half of that.
Right. Someone who's not just not enjoying it, but actually has extreme wealth and can't enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's not just not enjoy it, right? In the sense of I have it all and like I'm miserable anyway. It's that he has it all and he loses it to someone else, right? A stranger enjoys them, which is like a classical biblical theme going back to. We could talk about Deuteronomy. We could talk about Genesis, right? That Abraham is worried that the only person who can inherit him before he's had any children, right, is his servant from Damascus, Eliezer. And in Deuteronomy, you have the soldiers are told they're told that if this is their first year being married, or they just built a house, they just planted a vineyard, etc., like they should go back and not fight in the war because like they won't have the opportunity to enjoy it. And like there is this very clear theme, I think, biblical theme throughout of like of having the space and ability to enjoy something is itself like part of the commandments. It's kind of built in. Like God gives us these things to and he wants us to enjoy them and not squander them, and even kind of, and there's a balance, like a war, right? You would think that like maybe you have a national duty first, and so there's like a balance between like the individual like ability to actually like be able to sit back and enjoy and actually like have something to fight for, right? Like and ground oneself and be able to like plant their vineyards and like or have or plant seeds in every sense, right? like in their in their wife in their land, right? Build a house. Like these are all actually like versions of planting seeds, but actually being able to like see the fruit of that, or at least know that it's to have an initial appreciation. Even if once it's the second year, you do have to go fight. It's only the first year after you do those things that you don't, right? So like how you balance those needs. So here, right, he's not talking about the balance so much as just like sometimes this happens and it sucks. So like this is the worst kind of outcome, which is you do all this labor and you don't get to enjoy it. And it does go to someone else. This is also very like exilic, right? Like, or in both senses, right? When the Israelites come into Canaan, they take the houses of the Canaanites, right? They also are seen there. In some sense, the Canaanites aren't able to enjoy the cities and houses and fields that they built and planted. And then when the Jews get exiled, you get very similar language on like, that the foreigners are enjoying the things that they planted and are subjugating their children and like all those things that they're not able to enjoy them. So like this wasted effort, like that someone else just kind of doesn't necessarily not necessarily luck into, because they might be fighting really hard to take it from you, but like it's still your wasted effort.
What comes to my mind is the burial part. I think that's what always sticks out to me. Probably just because all of those ideas like around, like even in the New Testament where it talks about what's the story with Lazarus and he gets gathered to Abraham's bosom, and it's kind of like there's like a special place for the righteous, or not even that, just being with family, being gathered to your people. Like I think that's something that comes up in the scripture a lot, that phrase of he was gathered to his people. And then like in the book of Kings, David's going through all that. I don't know if they've gotten there yet, but there's a part where like all these kings are being buried in the place of the kings, like, or in the tombs of the kings. And then what is it? Josiah gets there, and then he's like, "Hey, what are all these evil kings doing here?" And he takes their bones out. And it's like, so there is like a really significant element to, I guess, just the ritual and concept of burial and like where you're going to sleep or rest with your, if you're actually going to rest with your ancestors or something.
Yeah, I would say here it's actually, I like that. Here I'm tempted to kind of read it the other way, where it's like he has 100 kids, but they don't bury him. Right?
Yeah.
They abandon his body. Right?
And that's got to be linked somewhat with his soul not being satisfied?
Yeah.
Because like for me, just reading this, I'm like, these two things are different things. But for the author, these are connected somehow.
Well, I mean, they're connected throughout the Bible, right? Where someone says like, and he lived to the full satiation of his age, right? Like you have this idea of satiation specifically with like a good old age, right? I can't remember if you have it with Job, but I think you have it with
that phrase
at the end of Job. It says
at the end of Job, and with Abraham, and maybe at the end of Jacob's life, you kind of get the same word.
That's relatable. I've had too many years, full of these years.
So this is like a soul that hasn't lived its fullness, and has no burial, even though he has lived a long time, had many children.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think there's something to like, if you're not buried with people, like people just bury you wherever or leave you out for the animals to pick at, like that seems...
Which gets into another part of the New Testament where Jesus tells someone not to bury their father.
Oh, yeah.
Right, like a very disturbing part.
I've never really understood that.
So, because this is like a super important, and this is one of those places where like, normally I see Jesus very like kind of a proto-rabbinic, but like here it's very different, because like the rabbis say, like you bury, like that's the highest like kind of mitzvah you can do for another person, is to bury them, especially if they have no one else to bury them. And it's like even the high priest, if he finds a body, has to bury it, even though he'll become like not impure, according to the rabbis, which is like a very different take. Which I think, I don't know, we don't have to do
like the Good Samaritan story.
I think Jesus is being more influenced by the Essenes, Qumran, Johannine, John the Baptist type stuff here, which actually were much more concerned. Like they did not read those texts, you know, for them, like purity actually mattered a lot more to some degree. And like you did not like, it's funny because I would almost say that like here, the rabbis probably would have said to Jesus, like purity was made for man, not man for like whatever, right? No, not man for purity. And I think like there is kind of this reversal here where like, where Jesus wants everyone to be understood as someone who's like a high priest who can't, or like a Nazarite who can't like make themselves impure on purpose, and does not read that a high priest, you know, not understand that a high priest should, you know, if they are the only ones who can make themselves impure, they should. Like I think he wants everyone to act like a high priest. Like the high priest, for instance, is he, because he's the only one who can't bury his parents. Like all the other priests can bury their parents, right? So like this is a very unique status of like that only the high priest has, that they're not, that like he has other people to bury his parents for him, if other people are available. If they aren't, then he has to. Whereas I think Jesus wants to elevate everyone to be like at that level of purity, that strictness of purity. It's just kind of funny because like, then if you have that reading, then you have to say, well, what about the whole hand washing tradition of the elders, you know, like point that he makes elsewhere. So there is like, you have to like do a whole dissection on Jesus and impurity and the different gospels and how they approach impurity in different ways. Because they do have different positions. And different understandings of it, and then different understandings of what Jesus thought of it, I think, too. But yes, but just to understand, to go back to Ecclesiastes, like this is one of those super radical points of the New Testament, to not bury your father, and it's one that like Christians today, I think they don't kind of observe in the breach. Like I don't know any Christian who preaches don't bury your parents, even your non-Christian parents. Even like the purity is just not a question for Christians because it was negated by the rest of it. General traditional understanding of the New Testament, that like it's kind of missed is how important this is. This text though, I
have a feeling that Father Stephen DeYoung had talked about this, but I can't remember anything that he said. And and this is one of those strange passages that never really gets discussed, other than saying like there's sort of like a surface, I don't know, it seems surface levelly to me, which is just like following Jesus is more important than the duties you have towards your parents. Like he does this even when he's like, your mother and brothers are here for you. And they were explicitly there to kind of put the brakes on, be like, hey, things are getting a little, and he sensed this. And so he basically was like, no, there's no, you don't get to tell me to stop because, and so then he makes a statement, who are my mother and brothers?
Right. And then that becomes, you know, you love me more than them. And then that becomes hate your father and your mother. Right. That's like from the Luke. Right. So like it keeps kind of getting more intense in some sense, in these. Yeah.
Well, and it gets to like, this is Jesus claiming to be who he said he was, which is the Son of God, which if he is the Son of God, he would like people were offering up all kinds of good reasons to not follow or to whatever it was, and Jesus was striking those down.
But this gets into in the two major principles, right? That Jesus, you know, says these are the two great principles. You know, love God with the, you know, from the Shema, with the and love your neighbor as yourself. And you know, often I'll hear Christians say, well, he puts love of God first, then love your neighbor as yourself. So that's more important. It's really interesting because when the rabbis debate, they have the same debate over actually 5 or 6 different verses and which is the most important. And they like kind of the conclusion of that is love of man comes before love of God, because the one who doesn't love man doesn't love God. So they're still the same kind of principles at the core. And this gets into like why you have to, when you're at the temple, you have to drop what you're doing and go appease your fellow man, which, you know, reconcile with them before you can bring a sacrifice. Right? So Jesus does have some element of that.
Well, and he also has like what you've done for the least of these, you've done for me.
Exactly.
You've given a cup of cold water to the thirsty, or a piece of bread to the hungry.
Right.
clothe the naked. Yeah.
So then the question is does the order, when Jesus says the two great principles, does their order matter insofar as like, is the first one more important, or does it supersede the second one? And do all the gospel writers agree on that? But I don't think they necessarily do. I think Luke makes it the sharpest by saying, using the hate your father in your mother language, because that he might actually say, no, like you should put God above family in a way that's much more strong than, let's say, in John, when he's like, I think that's what the one where they're trying to put the brakes on him, right? So like there might be a difference, a real difference between like John and the Synoptics or John and Luke on this or whatever, and like kind of Matthew, Mark fall in between, because they're kind of, they use just like love me more than them, but not hate. And even the hate language is actually like very echoey of Deuteronomy and the Levites, or right, which is also like this priestly language of like the Levites were willing to kill
their brother
during the golden calf, which is funny because of course the Levites, it wasn't their actual real like nuclear family brothers, because the Levites didn't sin. They were the ones who specifically are killing people from other tribes. Well, whatever.
Yeah.
Metaphorical brothers. But it uses that language of like, it doesn't say hate, but it does say that, they were willing to kind of, So I do think that one way to read what Jesus is doing is saying that people need to be at this level of Levites or high priests. And like, but it is, I don't know that I'm not going to say he was the only one saying this. I do think that like it has a history in sects that did take purity seriously in a different way than the Pharisees did. Maybe they had different traditions of their elders than the Pharisees did. Fine. Or the proto-rabbis, or if you want to differentiate them. But it is really, really radical for ancient Israel to like say, and it's also part of like the sectarianism, in my view, of like, like you can even leave your parent unburied because like they might be a child of darkness and you're a child of light, or whatever language you want. You're saved and they're not. And like that there could be divisions within Israel, whereas like for the rabbis, like all Jews were going to the world to come, right? But that wasn't the case for like a sect like the Essenes, which really was drawing individual like differences between like some Jews are not saved and some Jews are saved. And the Christians very much inherit that line of thought, right? Some Jews are saved, right? They'll literally say some Jews are saved and some Jews aren't saved. They'll just say the reason they're saved is slightly different than the reason that seems to be saved. Anyway, we've gone into Christian exegesis, so let's go back to Ecclesiastes, because we should be talking about Job. This is about Job. I said, no more and child better off than he.
Okay, let me just walk through this, how I'm understanding it. So he seems to, the author seems to be doing this. He presents one thing and he presents sometimes kind of an opposite thing. So at first he talks about how that here's a man who has wealth, possessions, honor. He lacks nothing, but God gives him no power to enjoy them. But a stranger enjoys them. Okay, so this is a man without.
I should say, the translation makes it sound less political, but in Hebrew, it's actually like the word it uses for power here is like political power, shlot, and the stranger here is specifically the word used for like a foreigner. Not just like a stranger, like an immigrant stranger, whatever, but like this is like the type of foreigner who doesn't live in your land, and like basically your relations with are either war, some sort of negotiated treaty, or like selling slaves to each other, right? Like this is it's a very political line. And it would make sense for a king or whatever, like from that mindset of a king to talk in this way. But I think the translation kills that a lot. You don't hear that.
But for some reason, the stranger has the power in the situation to take or to use the possessions and wealth and.
I would say because of the political bent of the actual Hebrew, I think this is saying that like someone comes in and conquers you, or comes in and wins a war and takes your wealth.
So he says this is vanity. It's a grievous evil. And then this seems like he's presenting another situation where a man fathers 100 children and lives many years. So this is not the stranger. This is him having plenty of children. And so that the years are many. And then we have this situation, but his soul is not satisfied with good things and he has no burial. And so is this saying that this man from verse 1, where he's like doesn't have the power to enjoy him, and then this man who has all the children is not satisfied with life's good things. They're having a similar experience.
Yeah, it sounds like they're parallel to me. I don't know.
Yeah. So he's presenting these two kind of opposite situations. One man, the foreigner, has taken his stuff. The other man, he has 1,000 children, but yet they still have this parallel experience. And then he says a stillborn child's better off than he.
Right. And then this, certainly reminds us of, to Jason's point last time, this is King David having lots of kids who fight with each other, who don't really give David rest to make, even though he lives a long time, like he can't really be satisfied in some sense with the outcomes. He is buried. That is a difference, but like, I could see this kind of, and then the stillborn maybe being Solomon's older, brother that dies, maybe not quite as a stillborn, but the word doesn't necessarily mean stillborn. It's actually, you would like this. The word in Hebrew for this is a naphel, like nephilim. It means like something that's fallen out, right? So fallen down, right? So it is a miscarriage, basically, probably, but it does have kind of some the fallen nature of this child. Ooh, no! What happened? My computer just started doing something.
Oh,
Just started randomly acting. Okay.
For it comes in heavy and goes in darkness, and in darkness its name is covered. So they have the same fate as this stillborn child. Moreover, it has not seen the sun nor unknown anything, yet finds rest rather than he.
Yeah. That makes me think of the burial again, too, because it actually has a resting place. Yeah. Is that word rest shalom?
No, nachat.
Okay.
It's closer, like the word, like the name Noach.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Right. So like, to have rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Job always asks that he wants to. He wants God to leave him alone so that he could find rest and peace rather than.
Yeah, and he also says, "And why was I not like a buried stillborn, like babies who never saw the light?" Right. So he has a very, very close language to this.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about its name being covered with darkness?
Yeah, that's cool, isn't it? I like that.
I do too. It just it makes me think of that Novalis, Hymns to the Night, and also there's this line in, I don't think it's like this, from what I understand, I don't think it's like this in Judaism with like the mother's bloodline or name, but there's a line in like the very beginning of Fantastes, I remember reading it, and it's just kind of this weird throwaway thing if you're not paying attention, but this like fairy lady shows up to him and he kind of wants to kiss her, and she's like, "Don't kiss me, I could be your grandmother." And he's like, "No, you're not." And she's like, "Well, do you know all your mothers?" And there's this weird way, like the mothers or I was about to say the feminine, but that aspect, I guess, is like the name is covered, like and you have that in, I guess, in other places of the Bible too. The woman's head is covered, like her identity is covered. And so there's this weird, I don't know, just all those things, I guess, go through my head, with darkness being like kind of like a womb, and it's a place, and the earth being like Mother Earth getting buried there. Just all those things, I guess, go through my head. I don't know if any of that makes sense.
It does. I do. The stillbirth is really interesting, right? Because what is a stillborn? It is someone, right? Like it is something that has been being, like the mother has been growing in her body and like becomes wasted, right? Like it in some ways, the stillborn is parallel to like to the person who can't, like to the first guy, right? That has someone accumulating wealth, possessions, and honor, or someone who has like and it has survived 9 months, but then like it doesn't come to completion. And there is something interesting that he says, like a stillborn is similar to these things, but it's also different, because it's better in some ways to like never have experienced the world and never to have like gone further than that investment. It's sort of like the sunk cost fallacy, where it's like, okay, yeah, there was like an initial sunk cost and it's not great, but like if I go even further, it just gets worse and worse and worse. Like the more that I, but that's like a really, that makes it a little too propositional, because like a stillborn child, right? Like this is a really emotional thing, right? Like, I mean, if we really want to put it in its context, like the wastefulness of stillbirth, especially for women, but also for men, right, is like a really powerful thing that just seems like that's better than this. I'd rather that.
Yeah. I guess you get it. There's two different types of mourning too. Like, I guess you, even as a mother, like thinking of David's family and stuff, like having to mourn a son who does a bunch of evil versus having to mourn a son that passed away before you even got to name it. It's like the one that passed away, it is covered in darkness, and there's still all this potentiality around it. And like, you can imagine it as like being the best person ever in the world. You didn't have to watch it mess up or do something wrong, or I don't know.
Yeah.
And we will have, is it in Job? Who says it in the Bible? Who talks about like, or is it in Ecclesiastes? Somewhere it talks about like who knows how the body is formed in the womb, right? And there's this like interesting kind of other theme of this, which is like that even the stillbirth. I'm thinking there, it's certainly in Psalms, right? In Psalms, you get the like, you formed my parts, you knitted me together.
Yeah.
Like, you know me from the womb, intricately woven in the depths of the earth, right? You saw, my unformed substance. And then, but also in that verse, oh, sorry, I pulled up that verse. It's 139:16. Your eyes saw my unformed substance, in your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. So in some sense, there's this idea, at least in this psalm, that like the days of someone, at least in potentia, God has already kind of like declared in the womb. And so like the stillbirth doesn't not have those days in some sense. Like they still, like, they're still like written in them, but they're not, right? Like, like a very funky way.
Yeah, like Jeremiah says.
Here it's very positive.
Too.
Whereas like in other places, it's like not good. Like that guy, the stillborn is bad, but relatively less bad than other things, right? Like here it's like, wow, how amazing is this fetus in the womb? Like, and like, it's amazing that you knew me this way and that you formed me in this way. Like this is investing it with that enchantment, the magic, right? Not seeing it as empty.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember exactly where it's.
What part? Ecclesiastes?
In Job, where he talks about his knitting.
Is it 7? Oh, 10. I was going to guess 7.
No, that was a good guess.
Thanks.
I was actually thinking 7 just before. But he says, your hands fashioned and made me, and now you have destroyed me altogether. This is brutal, because Job is putting these two things together, and then he, remember that you have made me like clay. Will you return me to the dust? Did you not pour me out like milk and curdle me like cheese? You clothed me with skin and flesh and knit me together with bones and sinews. You have granted me life and steadfast love, and your care has preserved my spirit. Now here it comes. Yet these things you hid in your heart. I know that this was your purpose. If I sin, you watch me, and you do not acquit me of my iniquity. If I am guilty, woe to me. If I am in the right, I cannot lift up my head, for I am filled with disgrace, and I look upon my affliction.
You go down to 18.
Why did you bring me out from the womb? Would that I have died before any eye had seen me, and were as though I had not been carried from the womb to the grave. Job is asking the same question, except he's being like, Ecclesiastes is like comparing the two, stillborn child to this man. Job is very personal. He's like, why was I not the stillborn?
Yeah. He says in chapter 3 as well, right?
Yeah.
But in chapter 10, he specifically talks about the knitting together. In Job.
But he also ends chapter 10 was saying, like, I'm going to return to this land of darkness, right? Like, so this covering in darkness, going back to the one's name is in darkness, right? He has that same idea where like that is like a big part of the grave is this return to the Salmavet and Ophel.
Yeah, he says, let that day be darkness. That's the day he was born. May God above not seek it. Let gloom and deep darkness claim it. Let clouds dwell upon it. Let the blackness of day terrify it.
Do you remember when we talked about that and we talked about how it paralleled Sinai?
Yeah, I think about this all the time because the darkness and the gloom and the deep darkness, it's all talking about the clouds of Sinai and what Moses ascended into before when he got the law and
then remember, the people think he died, right? 40 days later, but they think he died.
on fire.
He went into the darkness. Right? Like this is not just that Sinai is like, like it's dangerous. It is death. I mean, it could be all those things, right? Like
is it weird that Moses went up and ascended into the darkness? Because normally you descend into it.
I don't know. I think
not that weird.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean, there's like, is it the difference between like the waters above and the waters below? Like there's these two aspects that kind of mirror each other. Like you could ascend into the darkness or descend. Anyway.
No, I like that.
It's my poetic brain.
I mean, I think it's part of it's like the Holy of Holies, right? Like the menorah is outside of the curtains, but then you go behind these curtains and then you really like you are in darkness. You have to bring, in fact, coals into that darkness, which is kind of interesting. Like what's lighting it?
Well, and then they make smoke with it. They throw the incense
but it's already dark. Like you can't see anyway. Like why do you need the smoke, right? And if beyond the one thing is that it's giving light. I mean, it depends on how heavy the curtains are, I guess. But the one thing that's really giving light is the burning or the glowing embers of the incense pan.
But even then, they didn't dare look at the ark, right?
No, they could look at the ark.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no problem looking at the ark. The ark isn't a thing.
The presence of God.
There's no problem.
When the high priest went in.
If you're going, it doesn't limit them looking at whatever's there. But like, there is a theory that the whole idea of the smoke is that it veils whatever's there, so they're not really seeing it. But God doesn't reveal His glory there until there is smoke. So like, it's never there unveiled in some sense.
Okay, so the veiling like God will appear after the veiling.
Yeah, or he appears he's either in the smoke or behind the smoke. Like it depends on how you read that, right? There's this long kind of debate over like where is God kind of channeling through between the cherubs and that. But, okay,
so
interesting.
Yeah.
For the man who's alive, so that's not stillborn, all the toil of a man is for his mouth, but his appetite is not satisfied. For what advantage is the wise man over the fool? And what does the poor man have who knows how to conduct himself before the living? Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the appetite. This also is hevel and a striving after wind.
So this is really interesting to read against Eden, right? Going back to that reading, which we haven't done as much yet, right? So here, amal, toil, is the word used for what he's going to do when he's cursed to leave Eden, and he has to work for his food. But even then, he's not satiated. Here it says appetite. In the Hebrew, it says his soul is not satiated, or his throat is not satiated. Right, the thing that he's right.
The throat, yeah.
So, but if it's soul,
the throat is where the soul is.
Right.
Yeah.
But one might also think that he's not satiated, like because he knows that Eden has satiation, and whatever he's doing out here is not that labor, right? He's never going to have the soul satisfaction of being in Eden, but even through this labor, he doesn't take him back to an Edenic state. It also is specifically, it's the word that you have never satisfied, which makes it.
It also says filled here.
It's right. The Hebrew is not satisfied. It's not the same word as we had earlier. Here, it's actually to fill, and this is the word of like. It's actually the same phrase we had at the beginning of the book of the oceans never filled. right? So it is drawing this parallel between man,
This word
never
is
being
throat.
filled with this. So I would read this in Hebrew as his soul is never filled, which is a very different way to read it.
That's what mine says. Yeah.
The toil of a man is for his mouth, yet his
soul is never filled.
But this, I mean, even if you read this as throat, like that's even an interesting, just sort of reading that
It's
you
true.
toil for your mouth to put things in your mouth, but your throat, it just goes down
through the throat. Right.
Yeah, and so it's never filled. Yeah.
Yeah, that also can work. The other thing I was noticing here is there's this whole thing about eyes, and he's saying like, better to follow kind of the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the soul. But like, of course, following the sight of the eyes is how you end up eating the apple, right? So like, there is this like, it's in fact it's that same phrase of like, it was good to see, and here it's saying, like, is that not the wandering of the soul? Like, okay, so what is there a differentiation that he's trying to make here? Like, to me, there's like this question, like I don't know what to do with that, and then it's compounded by this that he's going at the end of 8, again, where he uses that same word to wander, right? So you have this kind of wandering. Well, you don't have it, but you have this in the Hebrew. It has like wandering, like opposite or against or across from life. But of course, like, and then I'm thinking the tree of life, right? So he's like, but also across from or against or whatever is the word for, is half of the phrase for what Eve is, right? Where she's this opponent processor. But like, right, the helpmate, whatever. But really like the one who is like helping you by being against you or being opposite you or being across from you, right? So like here, life, maybe the tree of life is across from the tree of knowledge, and you're like wandering after the thing that's opposite life, which is knowledge, and then it's better to see than to follow one's soul. I don't know. There's something kind of cool going on here, but I can't quite follow it.
The part that comes to my mind with that verse is, I think it's a verse in Proverbs where he says like the people die for lack of prophetic vision or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if that maybe tied in somehow, like not having, like just kind of aimlessly wandering without having some sort of light or sight or something like that.
Yeah.
Better in the sight of
Proverbs
the
29.
Is that it? You what? You know it?
Proverbs 29:18.
Whoa. Yeah. No.
I mean, the computer knows it.
Okay. I don't know if that's that's what my mind thought of, but I don't know if that would be a good way to read it because it does seem like a strange.
29:18.
Yeah. So for lack of vision, people lose restraint, control. They go wild. Shomer Torah Ashrehu, the one who guards instruction or Torah is happy. Or should be happy.
My version also says better in the sight of the eyes than the wandering of desire.
Better in the sight of the eyes
than the wandering of desire.
Tomer Enaim Halach Nefesh. Yeah. I would change desire to soul, but yeah.
Okay, wandering of the soul.
Okay. But also, what is a wandering soul? Like it's they're cast out of Eden. Maybe that's the wandering soul. Yeah. Maybe it's better to behold the tree of knowledge without taking from it. Maybe that's one way to read it. Like maybe it would just been better to stay in Eden and like beholding the tree without reaching forward.
Yeah.
But at least you get to see the tree.
This kind of makes me think of people that like are really against. I guess I'm categorizing people. That's probably not great, but the type of people that are really against like getting a normal job and they just want to do what they're passionate about all the time. Because it is. I mean, we do have that saying of you're selling your soul to like the corporate thing just to do what? Just to fill your mouth and just to get by. But I kind of like, I don't know. I feel like that's not a bad thing. But I understand like it is kind of you toil, you just do this job all the time and for what? Just to eat food and then you don't have any But then I like how Ecclesiastes does that too, though, because you could go the other route and be like, okay, I'm going to spend my life doing art or making these pretty things. And he's like, well, who are you leaving it for? Some jerk son of yours? Like, what are you doing with that either? And so it's like, it kind of goes back and forth, but. I like this last part.
Okay, let's get to the last part. We're not going to solve 7 through 9. But I want to keep thinking about that. It's bothering me.
Yeah, it's kind of, it has there's something weird going on.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like it at first. When you first read it, it seems like, oh, like it seems kind of very surface. And you're like, wait a minute.
Well, he kind of bookends it, though. Like the first part is, man is just working for food. And then the other part is like, you're really just striving after ruach or the wind instead of food.
Or you're shepherding the wind.
Oh, yeah, I like that translation. Yeah.
Shepherding after the wind, yeah. Okay, whatever has come to be has already been named, and it is known what man is, and that he is not able to dispute with one stronger than he. The more words, the more hevel, and what is the advantage to man? For who knows what is good for man while he lives the few days of his vain life, which passes like a shadow? For who can tell a man what will be after him under the sun?
I like to replace this part with Adam and Hevel in those parts. It's just fun to read it that way.
All right.
Whatever has come has already been named, and it is known what Adam is, and he cannot dispute with one stronger than he. The more words, the more Hevel, and what is the advantage to Adam? For who knows what is good for Adam while he lives the few days of his Hevel life, which he passes like a shadow? Who can tell Adam what will be after him under the sun?
So I'm going to make one tiny little...
Yeah, please do.
I love that, Jason. I'm going to make a tiny little thing.
Yeah.
So shadow here, this is the same word as like image of God, right? This is sail. This is, so like you can say it's shadow, but you can also say that, you know, he's actually given an instruction there. He shall make them like the image.
That's this word here?
Yeah. So it's sail and selim, but they're the same kind of root.
So could you read it like that? Like, would you be able to do that? No way that would.
Yeah. So let me reread it. I'm going to actually go back a verse because I think it works.
Okay.
It's a 9. So better the sight of the eyes, let's say seeing the fruit, from the wandering soul kicked out of Eden. For this too is Hevel and shepherding the wind. For what has already happened is named for him. Mikrash Shmo is named in his name, and it is known that that he is Adam, and he cannot judge that which is stronger or overpowers him. Actually, overpowers him. For there are many things. There are many. Okay, this. So you can read this a couple different ways. One way to read this will be for there are many things which multiply Hevel. Mayoter la Adam. What remains for Adam? Like that's a rhetorical question.
Oh, it multiplies for Hevel, but what remains for Adam? That's kind of, I like that.
For who knows what is good for Adam in life? The number of his days are his Hevel, and he shall make them like the image. Asher miyagila Adam. For who has told man what will be after him under the sun?
What's this last question mean? For who can it's just talking about like being able to predict the future, or
so it could be that. That certainly sounds like some of the things, like, you know, you don't know if someone bad will inherit you. You don't know if you will.
Yeah, you could do all this work, and who knows if it's going to last or not.
Know. That's one way to read it. Another way to read this is who has told man what comes after him under the sun. The answer to that could be God, who did tell man what would happen if he was disobedient, and does tell man about the afterlife, or does tell. We can put in a whole bunch of things that God revealed. You know, and like you can read this in a very different, much more pious way. You know, potentially, it doesn't necessarily fit other parts of the book, but like But it would fit chapter 5, which this is contiguous with, which he does actually acknowledge God and his power. And he does seem to be talking about God here, about, disputing, the thing that overpowers man. Like, you can't judge God, which is, again, we're super Job territory, right, in all this.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
yeah, because Job wants God to answer for this.
Mm-hmm.
God,
he really does.
He knows that his friends sort of are lacking because they can't discern the situation, and then he demands that God answer him, and he stands on his integrity. He stands on. I stand on business.
Okay, why don't we move to 7? I think we're probably not gonna even get beyond.
Is there a break in the Hebrew?
Yeah, there's a break here. So there's a big break. Not only is there a break, but the first letter of chapter 7 is extra large in the on the scroll.
Because
this is a new section, and it actually is going to go all the way. Does it go all the way to the end of the book? It's pretty long, but yeah, this is a whole new section.
Because the reason I ask is because I like that this one begins like he just talks about whatever one is he has been named already, and how like there is this name of Adam, but then the name of Hevel just gets multiplied or increased, and then right after that he says a good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth, and it's like he's talking about a name again. That's why I was wondering if there was a break.
So there's a big break, but I think like. It's a good argument that there's a continuity despite the break, where like the second half of the book or the third part of the book is picking up with the same theme that you just ended off with. And it's going to stress like, so we just said like, maybe names are, maybe it's better to just have your name buried in darkness. But now this is going to sort of undermine that a little bit. It's going to be like, well, actually there's degrees of relativity here where it's like, the worst is to be conquered by the far nation and lose your wealth, or have 100 kids but no one to bury you. The next worst is being this, stillborn with a very name. But like, there's another level beyond that, which is and the first line is super, right? The first line really is a nice continuation because it's a good name is better than good oil, and the day of death better than the day of birth. Right, so like you're super on that same track of the beginning of 6, the first half of 6, at least. But if you're reading all of that stuff about Hevel and the name of Adam and knowing his name and being named after, right, like then it really does flow through the whole chapter. It's saying names aren't important just because I just said it's better to have your name buried in darkness. Names are actually important, and that's like how that's why this is like actually a really weighty statement.
He says multiple times that all is Hevel. Does that mean everything inherits that name, possibly on that day of death? Because if all under the sun has that name of Hevel, like I kind of get that impression that everything's passing. Like this is the name everything's going to get when it passes on.
Or you could read it the other way, where everything's sort of like a fractal, where like in like Hevel's death becomes symbolic of the passing of all of the world, right? But it's not necessarily that it inherits it. It's actually more that like Hevel becomes invested in all of that finitude.
Okay, yeah, I kind of like
because he's the first thing to die in some sense, right?
Yeah.
Even though like Eden ends, but like it doesn't really end, like it continues. But like a whole like let's look what a child learns about death, right? Like the idea would never have occurred to them, even though they've seen like things end, they've turned off the television, like there's something, the finality of death and like and that life like can be so finite, like it's really like it is mind-blowing to some degree, right? Like, and it's like, and yeah, and there's actually like one of the midrashim about Cain was he didn't know that he could even kill his brother, like that he like hit him and didn't realize he was dead, and because he's never seen death before.
Sorry.
Right? Like, that's like this is a fascinating like reading.
There's this movie called Year One. I don't recommend seeing it, but it's this comedy movie where it's pretty debaucherous, but if that's even a word. There's a scene in Cain's killing Abel, and he hits him with a rock, and he like, I think Paul Rudd is playing Abel, and he like falls on the ground. And he's like, "No, what did I do?" And then he like starts to groan and wake up, and he hits him again, and then he actually dies. And he's like, "No, what did I continue to do?" Kind of like that. He didn't know he was like actually kill him.
Yeah. But to some degree, like, if you really think that death enters the world after Eden, which is not necessarily a Jewish reading, but there are some things that lean in that direction. Like, and this also gets to the question of, did Hevel actually kill animals in his sacrifice or not? Because the word can mean fats or dairy products. So like, if it could really be that this is the first death of anything, not just just man, but it's certainly the first man to die, right? So like,
why are fats and dairy products? Why would that be an offering? Like, why is that special?
Well, is
it because does it give light? Is it like the
oil? No. I mean, it's because they're the best part of the meat. So the flavors in the fat, right?
Okay.
The fats are where, like, they're especially in a society that doesn't have a lot of calories. Like, the fats are all the calories, right? So to give God of the fats is like, and it's not all the fat, right? But it's specifically the suet, right? So suet is not kosher because we have to give all of the suet. Like, we can't eat it; we're not allowed to, right? Just like blood. So, and for sacrifices, that is all offered.
Okay.
So, okay, but we are talking about oil, so like we could go back. In 7, right? So is oil here? I think oil is about light. I don't think it's right?
Yeah.
That's primarily what they're using oil for. And of course, it's interesting because there's this interplay of, we talked about darkness with death and brightness with light. But here, like, we like a good name, which probably is reputation, honestly, or memory, right? So like, which ties us back to the 100 children, like having that good, name / reputation / memory is better than good light, which itself is better than may or may not be better than darkness, but he'd rather have a name in darkness than light without a name.
Makes me think of Achilles, right? Isn't that what he wanted? The good name.
Achilles?
In that story, I thought that was the thing he chose. Like, he had the option of choosing a quiet life with his family, or he could go to war and inherit this like good name as like a warrior in battle. And he chose the good name and regretted it later, or something like that.
It was making me think more of the high priest, because he goes into the darkness of the Holy of Holies, but wearing the names of the children. Well, actually, he takes them off. He takes off the names when he goes in. He goes to the linen.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, he's not allowed to wear gold, so he has to take off all the gold before he goes into the Holy of Holies.
Wow.
He takes it off in the holy place, and then...
No, he has to go outside to take it off. He can't be naked there. He has to go outside, take it off, redress in linen, and then go inside, like, kind of straight back. Like, pick up the incense pan and go straight back. Then he comes back out again, and he changes back into the 8 priestly garments, and then goes back in. But not into the Holy of Holies, just to the holy.
Right.
It's interesting. He can't be naked there.
Yeah, that's a really important thing. It's the end of the 10 Commandments. Like, the last 3 commandments after the 10 Commandments, if you like actually read right to the end of the chapter, is like the priests have to be covered. They have to wear pants. They can't be naked. They can't go up ramp. They have to have they have to go up. They can't have steps.
I remember that part. Yeah. So you can't see their nakedness. It just makes me think of the garden that they were.
It is. It's all about the garden. It's about and God clothing. Yeah. There's actually parallel language in God, doing the commandments of the clothing for the priests, and God clothing Adam and Eve. And one of the really interesting things that you don't actually, unless you're Josephus, like, you wouldn't really notice, is, in the Jewish Midrash, that it's Leviathan skins that Adam and Eve are covered in, right? That's the leather. And Josephus says that the belt of the high priest was made to look like the skin of a Leviathan. So there's like a very explicit kind of embodied kind of reminder of that.
I heard that the outer layer also of the tabernacle was Leviathan.
No, that's actually really not Leviathan. Not Leviathan. Narwhals is a
that's amazing.
It was a common was a common medieval reading.
Where does one get narwhals?
In the middle of the desert. In the tropics. Yeah, it's a great question.
They got them when they were crossing the Red Sea. They just grabbed a couple as they were swimming by.
This is like there was a word that they didn't know how to translate it, and like they knew that it meant multicolored, and they come up with but both Christians and Jewish exegetes come up with a whole bunch of options of like what this multicolored outer waterproof layer is. So narwhal, because it's waterproof, they're like, well, like that's waterproof.
Yeah, why not?
And it has multicolored skin. They only knew it kind of from it. I think the tradition was it was something with some animal that had one horn. So they're like, well, we only know one animal has one horn.
Unicorn.
That's not unicorns. And it's a narwhal. Now it turns out that now that we have archaeology and we actually know some better ancient Egyptian, we know like it's a specific type of leather product that the Egyptians made, like pretty sure at least about that. But
so it was Leviathan.
Well, Jess just mentioned behemoth. Would there be a connection there? Because doesn't it say about the behemoth like the water doesn't affect him, like he just stands in it and it rushes into his nostrils and he's not. Is there anything with the behemoth?
The behemoth was in a swamp in Job, right?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, behemoth.
Or in the fens of the river.
Is he multicolored?
No, we don't hear about the color, I don't think.
No.
Yeah. That'd be fun. I mean, we could do a whole thing on the different animals and things in material. People thought that
if behemoth was rainbow colored, that'd be cool.
Jason and I had a conversation called Fantastic Beasts, and we talked about all the beasts in the Bible. Well, a lot of them. We probably didn't get them all.
Yeah, so I think, let's see, Tachash. So there's some people who said it was badger skins. Then
a lot of badgers.
Comparing it to Arabic, thought it was dolphin. In Assyrian, it was sheepskin. There was and then there actually is someone who says unicorn skin. I should say that. We shouldn't totally ignore the one-horned beast. So yeah, that's what they were doing. They were killing unicorns to clothe the tabernacle, which is like very. I mean, J.K. Rowling would have a problem with that, but seal skins. They also have seal.
Okay. Yeah. They're pretty waterproof.
Porpoises.
Okay. Yeah. We don't want to do that. We shouldn't be killing dolphins.
Manatees.
People don't like that.
Yeah, or porpoises or manatees or unicorns.
That's a lot of badgers. I think that should be the title of this episode. That's a lot of badgers.
That's a lot of badgers. All right, we're not going to get through 7. I think.
Yeah, we should really touch 7, and our time's almost up.
We got through one chapter.
We got through the first verse of 7.
Yeah, I have a question though about 7. So in my version here,
it's long.
It goes from like this ending to like it looks like Proverbs, only much darker. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden we're in paragraph format here. Sort of. I guess there's line breaks, but in my actual Bible it's printed just like it is all in your Hebrew. Is it all one section?
Yeah, it's all one section. It doesn't have this like
all of 7, or is it like 7, 8? I can see
why they're doing it, because you basically have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 section. Like the next 6 kind of either single lines or double couplets are going to all start with the word good. So I can understand why like it's kind of proverby kind of formatting, because you're gonna. No, your translation actually doesn't highlight the fact that it keeps saying good as the first word of each of these sentences.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Like verse 1 starts with good, verse 2 starts with the word good, tov. Verse 3 starts with good, verse 5 starts with good, verse 8 starts with good.
I wonder if like the New King James says better to go.
Because it just like 6 just ended him asking the question, what is good for Adam? In his heavenly life.
Who has told Adam what is after him? But we had the word good a little earlier
Yeah.
Human.
What
totally
is good for man in life?
Yeah, it starts there. What is good for man, Adam in life, right? So here we're gonna have the answer. Good are all these things. We have like seven goods. I may have to double check.
Mine doesn't
it's
say
weird
that.
because they're not necessarily opposite of Proverbs, but they're not like Proverbs is a lot more friendly.
Yes.
Like saying the day of death is better than the day of one's birth is not, I don't think that's in Proverbs at all. But you do have something about a good name, better to be in the house of mourning than in the house of feasting. Like I was looking at some of the cross references to see if I could spy any, like Proverbs has, even in laughter the heart may ache and joy may end in sorrow. But I feel like Ecclesiastes goes a little harder than the Proverbs.
Yeah, it just tells you it's good for you.
Drink the end of all. Yeah.
Drink that bitter drink.
Sorrow is better than laughter. That's a good it's a good one to end on.
Yeah, but here is kind of where we end up.
What is that?
This is what, how I told you at the beginning, there's this way to read this where he becomes progressively less dark, and he actually, right, like Hevel is very dark at the beginning and only negative, and it becomes less so as it goes through the books. I think this is part of that transformation where he is now actually saying there are things that are good in this world. After all of this like negativity of the first two sections, we can actually start making differentiations on something. And there is, it sounds different, like the rhythm is different. Even we can talk about whether this formatting helps to understand that or not, but like the rhythm of the text does become different here, and the vibe, even though like it's still like dark, it's like I can still see some goodness in the darkness.
There's some sort of progress being made. It's not descending more and more into nonsensical.
Right, like he kind of hits a limit at the end of 6, and he like, that's where he needs to tell a joke to our stream yesterday.
Right. Like, need some laughter.
I mean, it might be a pretty dark joke, but you need a little laughter there, and then like, yeah, and yeah. Well, it's also interesting to compare this section to like the beginning of 3, which is like the different times, because like there was the last time we really had a section on differentiating, but there was like not judging. It was just saying like there's a time for this and a time for that,
right.
And it's just the only thing that's good is that like to know for you to figure out if what the time is for what is the good thing, but not like any of these like individual things being better than another.
Right.
Whereas here, like we're getting now at the next, like, I don't know, what do you want to call it?
Yeah, there was when I glanced at that, I think it was in the book you gave me. She said something like, I think it was some rabbi pointed out that the day of death is for both. Like if you have a day of celebration or feasting or whatever, or the house is like only for the living, but the house of mourning is for both the living and the dead, sort of thing. And that's interesting. I thought that was interesting.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely places to compare this with in, is it Jeremiah, Ezekiel, or Isaiah, somewhere where he's based. I think maybe both of them, in fact, where they're basically saying like the people, are drinking and debauching themselves, even though like they're about to get destroyed, because they're like, who cares anymore? Like we're about to die, we might as well, eat, drink, and be merry. For we die tomorrow.
Yeah, it's I think it's in Isaiah. I wanted to ask you about that because there is this weird, kind of in Ecclesiastes, he's like, eat, drink, and be merry and enjoy life. But in Isaiah, it's like this thing, and it's always stood out to me because after that, I don't know what the Hebrew word is, but in my translation, God says, in Isaiah, they say, let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. And God says, for this, there'll be no forgiveness for you, or something like that. I don't know what it probably doesn't say that in the Hebrew, but it's always
this is one of those places where it's also in Corinthians, and I don't remember which version. I think in Isaiah it doesn't say that. I think that's the gloss in Corinthians.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. So we have to double check.
Let me find it. Yeah,
it's Isaiah 22:13.
Okay.
And God called, or summoned on that day, the hosts to weep and lament, and to tear out their hair and to wear sackcloth. And behold, or instead, there was joy and rejoicing, the slaughter of cattle and sheep, the eating of meat, the drinking of wine. Eat, drink, for tomorrow we die.
And then verse 14.
And God revealed to their ears, the Lord of hosts revealed to their ears, or to my ears, sorry. Gosh, how do I translate that? How do you have it? Oh, you don't have it.
I have. Mine says, "For surely for this iniquity there will be no atonement for you, even to your death," says the Lord of hosts. That's why that always stood out to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's serious.
It's how would I? The weird word there is the first word of that phrase. The question. It's sort of like, will your sin be atoned for before you die?
Okay.
To me, I'd read it sort of like as a rhetorical question, but it's definitely a question form. The question is, it rhetorical or not?
Yeah. Yeah, which is weird because Ecclesiastes, like, I think that's probably not the right way to read it, but I think you could read it in such a way where it's almost telling you, like, hey, you're gonna die tomorrow. Enjoy it while you're here, And then this verse in Isaiah kind of seems like, don't, it's not the time for that. You should be mourning, like Ecclesiastes 7 says, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting considering 3 and 7, a time to weep, time to dance, a time to mourn, time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. And then here he says, it is better to go to the house of mourning. Sorrow is better than laughter. And even the house of mourning, the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning.
Yeah, that's interesting. Later he says in Ecclesiastes 2, a wise man's heart discerns both time and judgment, which is interesting thinking about the times and
time and so there's these times, and then there's the houses, the house of mourning and the house of feasting. And this is very Jobian because Job starts with the house of feasting and ends with the house of mourning, where everyone comes into the house of Job to comfort him. And even this part where it's like, it's better for a man to hear a rebuke of the wise than to hear the song of fools. Like the end of Job ends with the rebuke of the friends.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I'd also say that's sort of what Elihu's trying to do, right? But then he kind of he uses that very similar language to that.
Man, Elihu just drives me crazy because it can't. He plays such a pivotal, important role, but he's such a little proud young.
He's John the Baptist.
No.
No.
He's like a forerunner, but like he plays this important role, but he's so flawed.
Right. John the Baptist is far less flawed than Elihu.
Yeah.
Elihu is kind of like the young guy who shows up to estuary, who has no idea what everyone's talking about. He tries to butt in, and he might really move the conversation, but he doesn't really understand how he's doing it, and he thinks he does.
Yeah. Elihu synthesizes. He synthesizes the dream of Eliphaz and Job's suffering into one coherent thing, which was to keep a man from falling into a pit. So to save a man from a future disaster. But I don't know. That just seems dumb to me because the disaster's already come. Like, how much worse can it? Like Job, he destroyed everything so that you won't have another disaster.
So one might say he's still concerned with Job's soul, his eternal soul.
Sure.
Right. I mean, that could be the argument. I mean, we're speaking of the verse of tomorrow we die, right? like you might think that you're done, but God doesn't necessarily have to be done with you. He could, there's always more God can think of to do to you.
Yeah.
More. He's pretty creative.
I mean, that's we just had that line. There are many things. Many things that amplify Hevel, right? Like
he can make more Hevel.
You can always make the Hevel.
You can make more Hevel. Multiply the Hevel.
It's an endless source. Just like there's no end to the the rivers and the sea, and Hevel is also kind of endless.
And then the increase of Hevel, how is that beneficial to man?
Oh, it's not.
Yeah, right.
Wait, no, but so you say what is the advantage to man? I would
in 11.
I'm looking at it. I'm thinking about it.
Go to the house of mourning more.
I wouldn't call this advantage. So they're reading Yoter is Yitaron. They're reading it as kind of like one word being short for another. I would read this as like what is left for man, but I don't. I think kind of Hevel is left for man, but then.
What
I still think reading it as as opposed to reading it as he should consider it like a shadow to be, and he shall make them like the image. I think really does change how you read that, like that whole section.
Well, say more about that. I'm not sure I've fully understood that yet.
Yeah, because when I look up just in this little
I know.
Here, the shadow is
the main way to translate it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you click on that, right. And you look at like all of the right. See, so if you So if you look at Numbers 14 already, it's already moved. The word shadow there has already been changed to protection. And then if you look at on the right side of the related words at where is it? Tzilam, tell them it's. Well, you maybe could click on Tzilam, but it doesn't really matter because here it's one way to read a shadow is like it's something fleeting and it's finite.
Shade, protection, shelter.
But the other way to read it is a shelter, and it's God's shadow, and you're within that shadow, and you're being enveloped in the sukkah or the the wings of the angels, whatever, like all those things. It is also. I'd have to pull up a different concordance to show you how it's related to the word.
Right.
They're not exactly the same word, but they are from the same. They're very closely related words. So shadows and image and the image are basically. I mean, should not surprise you conceptually that they're closely related.
Well, I guess what I'm asking, like even if that word is image, like I'm not really wanting you to like prove that it is or something. Like just what is. I guess I'm still not quite sure. My mind comprehends how to read that or understand that, since there are many things that increase
it redeems it. Because
you shall make them.
It's one way to read fleetingness as Hevel, and it's just going to die, and there's no point.
Yeah.
It's very different to say, "Hey, yes, my life is a shadow, but that shadow is actually God casting His shadow on me."
Okay.
Or that it is the image of God on me, and I can actually there is a redemption of the finite. Yes, it's fleeting. Yes, it's a shadow. Yes, it's not the real thing, the full thing, the whatever, but it's still a projection of that. And and I can still do something with that. And I also think because you have passes like a shadow, but here I don't have to make an argument. Like the Hebrew very clearly says, you shall make them like a shadow.
Them like it. Okay.
And he shall make them sounds like the only subject in the sentence is man. So man, it sounds like almost man has more control in that when it's that he's making it, as opposed to just like he's this thing that passes like a shadow. He's Hevel, he doesn't have control over whether he lives or dies.
For who knows what is good for Adam while he lives the days of his Hevel life, which he shall make like the image, right? Or the image. Yeah. Which he shall make like the image. And then he goes on to say, good name is better than precious ointment, good to go to the house of mourning rather than the house of feasting. I like that you brought up Job, because made me think about his friends, like if they were out just partying while Job was suffering, but it's like, no, they actively went, because there's a time for both, but it's like they actively
well, and
did not do that. And
did they go there? Did they go there to comfort him?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
That's their purpose.
Yeah. Which they
don't end up doing because they're kind of trapped within their.
Hey, they tried.
They gave it a good go.
They had like 7 days.
They had good intentions.
Good intentions.
I don't think I could have sat there. Was it 7 days? They sat there.
7 days.
They sat there 7 days in silence. Yeah.
And they didn't speak really until Job spoke, which was the right thing to do. So
yeah, my mind would have been wandering too much. I would have been like,
have you read the Bhagavad Gita? Can't say it. All right, I gotta go, guys.
Yeah, I do.
Great. Good.
Good. So we
will
I don't know.
Continue in chapter 7 next time. I'm glad we spent enough time in 6.
Yeah,
it's probably the shortest chapter, but we really we gave it its due.
I feel like it's the kind of a central point of the book, though. So
we really rushed through those first 5, but we didn't go line by line. I don't know. We could talk about whether we like.
I know.
We can talk about which style we want to do for the rest next, because we probably should decide.
I know if we're gonna do chapter by chapter. I like that, but I also like kind of going over large portions and kind of getting a feel of the flow of it. So
I like chapter 7. It's one. Chapter 12 is my favorite, but chapter 7 is probably my second favorite. So I don't mind going slow through that one either.
All right.
I do have another thing. We don't want to touch on this. Yeah. Okay.
No more.
Save it for next time.
Okay.
No, you can say it.
No. I'll say it after you end it. And then,
okay. All right. We're ending it. Tune in next time.